So welcome, Tevyn, again. Um, my first question for you, just to kind of break the ice a little bit, is I always do this. What does creativity mean to you?
That's an interesting question to start off with. I guess in the simplest way I could put it, to me it is you know like genuine expression in any form or fashion in terms of you know any creative medium, using any creative medium to create or express something from your mind or imagination, something that only you personally can generate. Because I think the most important thing about creativity or creation in any form is that only one person can create something like I guess anything that any person creates that is unique, because only that person can create that like that. Because obviously we all have our own minds, and so like I say, it's really about creating something that is personal to you, expressing something that's going on within you, and bringing that to life, manifesting that. That is what creativity is to me.
Love that. Love that. You sound like a rehearsed that. So Serena is actually going to give you the first question. So Serena, I hope you're standing by. So just talking mostly or mainly about Bohemia Room at first. Bohemia Room is a unique platform, and Serena is going to ask you her question about the inspiration and how you came up with the idea and stuff like that. Serena, you there?
Hi, good day. So I'm Serena. My question is, Bohemia Room TT is a unique platform. What was your initial inspiration for this, and what was the original goal?
So I feel like I've told this story so many times before, but it's never a problem telling it again, because it really came from really like humble beginnings when I say that. So it really started from my own exploration into or branching out in the creative scene, I guess, and that was through writing for me. So I started with my own brand, Gill.t, and I started actually putting out, expressing my own thoughts, some of my articles that I've done over the years, and something new that I had started, which was poetry. So the site actually got most popular for the poetry, and as a result of that, I started doing performances in these different open mic events locally to perform the poetry. And once I started doing that and started actually getting more involved in the creative scene and industry, I guess, and actually going to all these different open mic events and seeing what the current offerings were in, that, I guess, that atmosphere, it kind of inspired me, because I also realized I had a lot of friends that were operating in these fields, in this industry, in this scene, and I found that what was being offered already, it was good, but I felt like there was more that could be done. And so also as a in my personal experience as a performer, I felt like there was so much more on the execution side of these types of events that could really bring the material to life. So I kind of got, I was having a conversation with one of my friends one day about possibly doing our own open mic event, or just an event in general. And, I was telling him that I had this idea that I wanted to encapsulate all these different disciplines of creativity and arts and culture in one place. And I remember at the time, he was just like, that's too much. You're trying to do too much. And I was like, fair, but I feel like everywhere else already doing too little. So why not be the one place that is, trying to do the most? And, eventually we ended up coming to a compromise, and we started off actually offering only poetry, comedy, music, and oh my goodness, why am I drawing? Oh, art, sorry. So we started off with just those four disciplines. And we started off in a small place called Idlewood. I'm sure that some of you may or may not be familiar with it, but it's a really nice, creative space that popped up, I guess, within the last few years in Port of Spain. And that space itself was also a big inspiration into doing this, because I felt like at the time the events that that space catered to were really along the lines of everything that I wanted to put into this project. So that space was really one of the big inspirations, I think, or motivations, and I had to get that space to do it. And I ended up linking up with the guys who own the space, and they were happy to have an event like that happen there. And we did the first year there, just offering art, music, comedy, poetry, and naturally the creative, because of the atmosphere, I guess we were trying to pitch and trying to give these creatives, it grew naturally, and we ended up, having to move spaces to grow with it, and also starting to add new disciplines like dance. We also added a pop-up shop so that local vendors and artisans could also have a space to display their craft. So it was really the biggest thing I think about it was really bringing some awareness or shedding some light to these really great brands and really great creatives that we have no shortage of here in Trinidad and Tobago, and really trying to get a space that is dedicated to, I guess, bringing all of these underground people and all these people that are saying that we don't have a thriving creative community and we don't have this and we don't have that. Instead of trying to wait for someone to do these things for us, I decided to try and create it ourselves. So it was literally for us, from us. And that was, I guess, was the concept behind the creation of Bohemia.
So creators creating for creatives.
Correct.
Okay. How long has it been running for now?
So we actually had our first event on the 28th of September in 2018.
Okay.
So recently was our 2-year anniversary. So it's been going on for 2 years, I would say, in existence. Obviously, since COVID or the coronavirus pandemic, we haven't really been as active. But I would say 2 years for sure, 2 years strong.
Nice. So, if you were to compare the very first Bohemia Room session that you all had, or the first few of them, to probably the most recent one or the most recent set of them, how would you know, how would you make that comparison then? How has it changed? How has it grown?
I mean, it's really amazing to even think about that because, like I said, it started off really humble, minor, like minimum budget, and it's crazy to see how, okay, with sponsors now with us and stuff like that, how I was able to grow, but still retain the core elements of what the event offered even back then. So one of our biggest things is the visuals and the projections that we use to kind of display the art and just also set the atmosphere of, you know, somewhere else. And it's crazy to see just how that has developed alone, from going from, just these small pictures on a wall to like full side wall, drapings from ceiling to floor. And I think the growth has been immense, especially on social media, which I think is a really important platform and medium to be able to build brands these days. And I could say in 2019 alone, we went from, I think, 500 followers in January to almost 3,000 followers by December. So the growth was really rapid. The growth was really, um, I think, unprecedented in that field in terms of open mic events. And I think it was just really something nice to kind of see happen over time, given blood, sweat, and tears, and really seeing it developing and seeing people resonating with the core values of what it was intended for.
Now, when you're just talking about so many things that that we want to cover in a little bit more depth, um, but tell us about the concept of the Bohemia Room itself, the kind of creative theme behind it, and how you came up with it.
So as you can see on the I saw you had on one of the slides, you had a picture of the definition of what a bohemian is. And I think it really stemmed from that to begin with, because I think if you once you have an understanding of what the word bohemia, or the meaning of what a bohemian is a lot easier to kind of understand the rest of the concept of the event. And as you can see, there's basically a creative person, and this is not limited to any one discipline or talent in terms of creativity. It's a person who is creative in any realm, in any right, and who wants to live a free spirited life that is not based around, necessarily the norms of society and these kind of things. It's really about a person that believes in positivity, truth, freedom, who wants to really do these kinds of creative things with love. So it's more about a lifestyle than just a representation of something. I think is really a lot of different elements that come into it. And I think you actually see that when it comes to the event, and you see, okay, so it's not traditional. You come to event and you're sitting down on chairs, or you're standing up. Like, we have proper mats out on the floor, bean bags, there's incense burning. So literally, as you come in, there's something to appeal to all of your senses. There's the visuals, there's the aroma, there's just the vibe, the atmosphere of how people are naturally. Like, you see some people coming in there in some outfits that you would never see them wearing anywhere else in Trinidad today. But this is the space that they feel comfortable enough to come and express that side of themselves. So, there's a lot going on from the time you walk in the door. And we always try to make it that that setting that is something that you could walk into and feel. So it's not just something that you come to see or come to hear, but you come to experience. So it was really about building an experience around that understanding of what a bohemian lifestyle is, and also some of I guess, the visuals and the behaviors of that go with that.
Yeah, I like that concept of creating kind of another world, like a world within a world.
Um, in relativity to what you just said, how long was this idea under development? So how long have you been working to finally create this experience that you want people to have?
So like I said, it literally happened in the blink of an eye. At that time, I spent most of my days sitting in a Starbucks behind a laptop, just working on anything that I could. And literally, a phone call came, and I was my friend, and he was asking me if I wanted to perform at one of his events that he was looking to do. And when he was running down what the event was, I kind of, in that phone call, countered his offer with, I think we should do this instead. And it was, I guess, maybe my event background, because at that time I already had a lot of background in events and event production and stuff like that. I kind of just had these ideas of things that I felt I knew how to work into an event, and I think it would have this benefit to this crowd or this audience. So on that call, we literally kind of hashed out some of the main elements of what Bohemia Room would come to be. And over the next week, we kind of really finalized. So this call probably happened maybe the first week in September. And by the 28th of September, the event happened. So it was really a very quick coming together. And funny enough, it really reminds me of the process every single time, because from there we started to do it monthly. So at the end of every event, it was literally the start of another, because it would literally take the entire month to get everything together, get all the graphics together, know who all our suppliers are, make sure and lock in the venue for the event, get the performers ready, all of these things. So it's literally every month it would be the process literally restarts. Like, you would have that one night to celebrate and be like, okay, wow, the event went well, this came together. And then from the next day, it's like, okay, time to start the whole process all over again. But I guess to answer your question, it really came together really fast. Like I said, within a month, less than a month. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's not always the case. Sometimes ideas, and I think like I said, I guess my event background and just being in this space performing beforehand, I guess my mind had time to mull it over in ways that I didn't really, that I took for granted at that time in the phone call. But definitely, I think over time, things that you want to do, when the opportunity presents itself, you know what is required, and whether it takes a month, 2 months, 3 months, however long, you will get it done once you have that experience, once you have the concept. So I think, actually locking in on what the concept is that you have and knowing what it takes to execute that is really the most important part. Timeline kind of happens. It's amazing how quickly things will fall together once you know what you need.
Lisa, I'm glad to see that you're back with us because I think this really segues nicely into your question about startup.
Yeah, I didn't want to cut anybody off now, but he talking about all like exactly what my questions are, Justin. So sorry,
Yeah.
Serena.
No, it's not going in the order that you all did. You just go ahead, ask, because
Yeah,
I think it flows right into it. So go ahead.
flow
So
conversation.
since this process was so quick, then what would you describe that like? Since you already had your concept in mind, what was it like having to put that to such a quick process to make it happen?
It was very stressful, very high paced. Having to make all those calls so quickly, calling some favors, and sometimes, especially with startups, that is the basis. Like you have to call in favors that you would normally call in, or that you feel like this is a one-time cash in, but you have to use it because, like I said, this was a first-time thing. We had no idea if it would work, but we had to get it done. So it was literally call, 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 run and get this, run and get that, make sure we do site visits, make sure, we really understand what we're working with, what we have to work with, and how to get it done in the shortest space of time.
Yeah,
But
because I assume it would be different as to what you would have done before. Because like from reading your biography and stuff, they said you perform, so you wouldn't have to do all of those behind the scenes things, and also like on CNC3 or those TV based jobs, I assume you would have other people to do that for you, so you had to take on a lot of the responsibility yourself then.
correct. So I think also being in those settings helped a lot with giving me insight in terms of those other hats I would eventually have to wear. So, especially with CNC, I learn a lot with actual production, set production, and stuff like that. With my event background, already had a lot of contacts in terms of suppliers or in terms of actually understanding how to put together event, the psychology behind it, different things like that. So I think, like I said, really, your background really comes into play in ways that I don't think you at the time are even conscious of, and that really helps. It really helped me, having these different, experiences working in these different industries to wear all those different hats, to be a project manager, to be a stage manager, to be, the marketing manager, to be the creative director, to be all these different things. I really had little experiences throughout my life and throughout my career in different places that really helped build to this moment. So again, like I said, it was very hard, fast paced, very stressful, but I still had some knowledge of what needed to be done or some insight as opposed to someone who may not have any experience in event management or production would have. So it would make it even more difficult. I was blessed in that I had a lot of experience to kind of help drive me through certain points.
No, yeah, because you're doing like 10 people job for them, so you had to learn something.
And I mean, I
So
can't count the help that I would have from like people that are on my team because although I would know what needs to be done, I can't like literally do everything myself. So that is the next thing you also have to be aware of, like when and how to ask for help, and also who to ask for help, because there are people that I would not be able to say any of this um, without. because they really helped build the brand just as much as I did. But obviously, I would have to be able to see, okay, this is what the idea is, this is what the plan is, and then also trust in the delegation of whoever it is to know that they can handle that.
Yeah. Well, with as you mentioned, with asking for help, right? Since this process again was so rapid, how did you acquire revenue for this project? Did was that how was that for you?
So that was a big part of the calling in favors, because a lot of people that you would normally have to pay for certain things. I was able to ask for them for a freebie for this one time, and of course using this one time to help build on other times. But to answer your question, the first thing that you have to do is understand what your budget is. Understand what your budget is for what you're trying to accomplish. And once you understand what your budget is, what you need, what your costs are, then you can now start looking at people that you know in these areas and see what favors you can ask. And once you've exhausted the favors, then you have to actually see, okay, what capital do I realistically have, and what can I do without? What do I need, and what do I like absolutely need, and what do I maybe could forego till the next time? And understanding that, sometimes you do have to scale down your event or your idea based on what your current budget is, but knowing that, okay, I want to do this first one and acquire some capital so that the next one I can add that thing that I had to leave out the last time. You know, so it was really about drawing on my own personal capital that I had at the time, relying on some favors from others, and um, I'm really thankful to Bar Garden because at the time I was using them for drinks, and they were kind enough, based on the relationship that we had, to give me a consignment kind of deal, which was very important as well because if for those of you who might not know, consignment is basically where you only pay for what you use. So it's almost like a loan. Like they loan you these things in hopes that you pay them back. And of course, whatever you use, you will make money on, so you're able to pay them back for that, and then they'll take back the rest. So I was really happy to have that relationship with them, and they really saved me for months on months on months. So I have to thank them because they are the real OGs that helped me when I was really in need.
You'll write down that word, consignment. That's
Mhm.
one that we have to talk about because we were talking about funding and equity and all these kind of things. Elisa, you had a question about major changes, if any.
Yeah. Well, it's like a question and a sub question. So it was, how did COVID-19 the affect the Bohemia Room project, and did it sever some of your connections? Did it force you to make any major changes? Did you have to make any major changes from before to get a certain level of success from this project?
So, to answer the first question, which I believe is how has COVID affected it, I would say drastically, because obviously we are mostly event based, and obviously that requires gathering. So that is completely out of the question. So in terms of the actual event and revenue through that avenue, that has definitely been stunted for now. But we've always had um, ambitions or plans to go digital. That was always in our long-term plan. Now, COVID has now come and kind of sped up the timeline for some of those things. So we're really now in the process of working through that, I guess, that jump in the timeline. But all of our plans to go digital are still very much in place. And we're actually working on some of those things now. And I think for most businesses, that is the biggest change that COVID has brought. It has forced some people who in the past were not necessarily thinking digital to now have to go digital, which is where the world is moving anyway. So like I said, we had these plans from beforehand, but it was more in our long-term plans, or we had it structured in a way that it wasn't to be addressed right now. we had other things in the pipeline, but so because of that, we were forced to now kind of put those things that we had in the pipeline now, for now, and kind of pause that and now speed up our digital production because that is really what I think everybody should be focusing now. Even some of you that might have your own brands and own, you know, things going on, I think definitely you should be looking at digital for the way forward.
Nice. Elisa, well, she kind of jumped the question there, but the next one that she just put in the chat is, did you have any major changes to your concept in order to gain success from the what it initially was? As in, um, the very first concept that you had of Bohemia Room, as opposed to, I guess, what it has turned into, whether you had to make any major changes to make it work then.
So I don't think I was forced to make any major changes. I think most of the major changes that came really came from wanting to develop the experience and improve the product that we were putting out. So I would say one of the major changes that came is when we um, first changed locations and we added the pop-up shop. And so, like I say, we weren't forced to do that. No one was saying, you know, why Bohemia Room not doing a pop-up shop? But we wanted to also find a way to add another area or facet for local people to thrive. And you know, we already knew, okay, we have a certain amount of people coming to this spot every month. Why not give these people a crowd to sell to? So that was the whole basis behind the pop-up shop. And then when we added dance, which I think would be the next big move that we made, it was really just to add something else because we had dancers now coming to the show. And you know, why I started thinking, okay, well, if dancers are here, why not have them on the stage? You know,
So
so
the changes came about from like observing your customer response rather than you
correct,
being forced to change it.
correct. And I think that should be one of your biggest, like to me, from the day you start a business, you always have homework. And that is because you always want to develop, you always want to streamline something, you always want to improve, and you always want to make the experience the best possible experience for the consumer, because that is how you will get more consumers, that is how you will retain consumers. So the whole idea was, okay, how can we give them something else to be happy about? How can we give them another reason to want to come to this event? How can we give them another reason that is valuable for them? And so one of the other changes we made was, I mean, we always had this lead generator, and I'll go into that a little later maybe as well if we have time. We always had this lead generator where you sign up and you sign up with your email address and you get in for a cheaper price, which is at the time when I thought about it, it was genius. And but we were doing that by paper. That was paper based. So you came at the door and you signed up at the door. Now, there were two problems with this. One was that it then created a big backlog at the door because people were taking however long to write down the information. And then two, sometimes people writing down crapple foot thing and you can't really understand it when you have to actually log it into, a digital format. So we were losing emails that way too. So immediately I was like, okay, this could improve because we could cut the time at the door for customers to come in. And then we could also make it digital where they could provide me with a digital properly. Like there's no way to have crap of it in digital. You have to type the letters. So, that way we eliminated losing um, email addresses, and we also gain more email addresses because some people prefer digital anyway. So some people will come to the door and say, oh, I have to write. Well, I'm not doing that. But if it's a link and I can just tap the link and type it in, I'll do that. So we maximize emails that way as well. So again, it's just about seeing how your customers respond to certain things and really being aware enough to take that insight and improve with it.
I want to bring Dominique in very quickly. We have 5 minutes and 11 seconds before the call cuts off, so just come back.
Wow, we're talking more.
So yeah, same link, same password, everything. But one of the first things you said is that there are open mic events that exist and that you would have been to before. Dominique, are you there? Is your mic?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. So you can go ahead and ask the question about you know what your question is.
I do? Okay.
Yeah, you had a question about what makes it different.
Oh, okay. So I want to know, how do you ensure that your brand is different from everybody else's?
Um, well, firstly, with any product, anything that you want to bring to market, the first thing that you have to do is market research, without a doubt. That's the very, very first thing you have to do. In conceptualizing anything, the first thing you have to do is market research to understand how other products in your markets are performing and what are making them perform how they are performing. Why this one performing bad, why this one performing good. So one of my first things was I went to almost all the open mic events that Trinidad had to offer, just because like, I was all in South, in Sky Bar, going to open mic events because one, you have to understand what the current market is. You have to understand what the current offerings are. You have to understand who the crowd is. And once you understand those things, then you can now use your imagination to come up with something that could appease this crowd, this industry, this whatever. So for me, a lot of the things in Bohemia Room is really like, let's say something as basic as the playlist. Right now we have a playlist that plays before performers actually come on, during intermission, all of these things. That entire playlist was curated by me using music that I find was dope. And it's not that I think I have the best music taste. It was just that, hey, these are songs that I think fit into the vibe I'm trying to set. And these are songs that I think are cool and that I like. So I put it on and people respond to it. Now we actually have an entire Apple Music catalog of different playlists that are all curated by Bohemia Room for specific reasons, you know what I mean? Or to set specific vibes. So it's really about creating from your own imagination based on the market research that you've done. So in my case, I went to all the different open mics. I saw, okay, these are the different concepts that exist. These are the different crowds. These are the different geological locations that people use. These are the ones that are performing really well. These are the ones that maybe aren't performing as well. These are the ones that are really marketed really well. These are the ones that are underperforming in marketing, and really using all of those insights to now not make the same mistakes and also do better in certain regards, and mix that together with my wild imagination and a few tie-dye backdrops, and there we had Bohemia Room. But like I said, it's really about market research, understanding what your core elements are as well. Because I think that is the one thing that makes Bohemia Room different. Our core elements are a lot different from some of the other existing open mics. We offer, like I said, we offer all the different disciplines. There's also a lot of like heavy visuals in terms of the projections, the backdrops, the music, the scents, all those things. So I think it's really about like an experience. Create an experience is what we do differently.
Cool. Okay, it says less than a minute, but this last minute is be like 3 minutes. But
So you want to just reset one time?
oh yeah, I could do that. I just want to prep Dominique. When we come back, he'll ask a question about marketing, right? Cool. Because you started talking about it then.
True.
So I'm going to end the call now, and then everybody just come back. Seda also has a question, and Seda will ask it when we come back as well. So
Just want to have a question too.
okay, another question. Cool. So when we come back, right, I'm gonna end it now, or you don't go away. Don't go and peek. Come right back.
Back after these messages.
Okay. Bye, and see you all in 2 seconds. Go ahead with your question about marketing, Nabai. Max.
Okay, so your brand is very different from everybody else's, right? But how did you go about marketing your brand? Like, what are your strategies?
So from the jump, we knew that we were going heavy on digital, specifically because that is where our target market was. especially places like Instagram, because Instagram is also a very visual platform, and the experience that we wanted to present was a very visual one as well. So it just went hand in hand. So we actually targeted the three major social media platforms for that audience, so demographic at the time, which would be Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and we just went really hard on those specifically with a lot of graphics that represented the visuals that we wanted people to understand that we were about. That also the I remember one of the initial graphics also had the definition of what a bohemian was, so that people understood what we were going for, and not just that we had this event called Bohemia Room and people didn't understand it and stuff like that. So we really trying to break it down in terms of this is the basis of the experience we're trying to give y'all, and you know from there we just really built on that visual aspect, giving out the the trippy visuals as people kind of relate us to now, and you can actually see that from the picture down there. It's that kind of colorful, crazy, out of this world kind of experience. That is what we were going for. So we went really heavy on digital with all of those, and eventually we actually got to the point where we started working in some kinds of guerrilla marketing, which would involve more in your face kind of stuff. So something as simple as going to a Starbucks and like pinning up some of the posters and advertisements. That is something very simple, but it goes a long way, because places like Starbucks, as you're maybe aware, are very high traffic. People are in and out of there all the time. Sometimes people are in there for an entire day. So you can actually get to see this thing that you may not have had any awareness about before, and actually now on your own inquire. Go on Instagram, because we have the handles and stuff like that on it. So you can actually go on Instagram now and do your own research and find out more about the event. So I would say definitely right now digital marketing is where everybody should be focusing, because like I said before, digital is where the world is going. But there are also other forms of marketing. Email marketing is another one that we make a lot of use of. And like I said before, we had this lead generator where we would acquire uh, emails at the event, and then now use that in the email marketing plans. So again, email marketing is another form of digital marketing that people don't really talk about as much, but is very important as well.
So when you were kind of making up your marketing plan, did you have a particular target market in mind then, or was it just anybody who wants to be a bohemian?
I mean, yes and no. Like, yeah, so yes, to an extent, it would be anybody who is interested in that bohemian type of lifestyle. But also it was creatives in general. Like, so creatives of any age. It was people who were within a certain age bracket as well. It was people that use the app for these kinds of things, that were looking at these kind of things, that were interested in these kind of things. People that I knew personally, and their sub crowds. People that I knew would be interested in an offering like this. So it's really something that you have to do networking for, as well as, like I say, your market research, and also going to these other events. I was able to see, okay, this is what the general creative or person in Trinidad looks like. This is what the general profile is of a person that would come to these kind of things. So then based on that general profile, you then kind of build out your demographic based on who you would like to come, as well as who the person that is generally interested in this is. And based on that, you build out a demographic. And with things like Facebook and Instagram, you can actually target your audience very, very specifically using some of these insights. Like if all right, most of the creators in Trinidad coming from San Fernando and Port of Spain, you can actually target those areas. You could target, okay, they're mostly interested in music or art or whatever. You can actually target people specifically using these apps now. Like on some Cambridge Analytica
Yeah,
stuff,
that's the first thing that
right?
popped in my mind is the feds are
So
listening.
use it, definitely use it to your advantage,
Mm-hmm.
and build out your target market based on the things that you're seeing and observing in the industry and in the community.
I'm going to stick in Sada's question here. Sada is actually not a Form 6 student. She's a Form 5 theatre arts student, but she's very um, keen. So she's here as well. She wants to know, what did you observe about the other open mic events that you did, that you, or that you were part of, that you didn't want to be in your own? So the kind of, I guess, not so good aspects of them that you wanted to improve.
Um, so I guess one of the things I definitely wanted to improve was just the vibe, the overall vibe. Like, so some of them you really go to it and it's almost as if you're just coming here for that. You're coming here to sit down and just look at these people perform. But I realized that that didn't really do a lot for retention of people, and it didn't really do a lot for the crowd themselves in between performances, you know. So I really wanted to add an atmosphere that people who necessarily did not come for this, or they came and would like to have something else to do in the meantime, or just to be able to really create an environment that wasn't solely based around the performances, and also one that was heavy on the performances. So one thing I also observed was stage management. Like, stage management is very, very, very important for any sort of performance-based event. You know, you have to really understand how to
I just, hold on, I lost your audio for a sec. I don't know if it's just mine. Ooh.
check. Are we back?
Yeah, hold on.
Yes, you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. I don't know what happened
Sorry.
there.
Where was I forget.
Um, you were talking about, oh, stage management.
Right. So understanding stage management and knowing what is required for stage management and how to actually have a proper run of show is really important. And some places, you would go and you're waiting whole night for one performance to happen and things like that. And you really want to be cognizant of that because you can lose people in between that time. So for me, like, I mean, it took us a while to actually kind of get it on point, but starting on time is a very big factor. And then once we start, actually having a proper flow for the show without any major interruptions and stuff like that, like understanding that and actually getting that to happen is very, very important. Very important, especially when you promise people a certain time. Like, if you tell people 7 to 11, you need to be able to kind of stay within that run because they will prep themselves at 11 o'clock. I bus in. So wherever you reach in your show, I bus in at 11. You know what I mean? So you really have to take those things into account as well in terms of the actual execution of the show. But there were lots of things I felt like I needed to improve. So I guess, like I said, the atmosphere being one, the run of show being another, and definitely, I guess, the marketing, like the marketing of these events. Like, we have a proper month-long campaign that is directed at every step of the process if you want to come, or even if you want to perform. Like, we every month go through the steps again and again so that people that are new to the page or new to the event could know. The people that already know, it can be reinforced. And in that, you're building a culture. So from at a point, we would need necessarily need to put out this information because the information is so ingrained in the people already there that through word of mouth marketing, which is the next big form of marketing, people will tell you, hey, you want to perform, just go and do XYZ. Or if you want to come, just go and tap the link or whatever. People will now do that work for you. But you have to build that culture first. So it was really a long road of doing that, I guess. And just adding, like I said before, adding different improvements.
I really feel what you say there about stage management. Because as somebody, this is just my personal experience. That's why I stopped going to open mics, stopped performing for them because I just couldn't take the um, lack of organization.
Organization
Serena
is
has a
important.
Serena has a really interesting question here. that I think fits in here as well. Serena, you want to turn on your mic and ask?
Okay, hi. We're just speaking about management. So you said that you were performing before. So my question is, moving from a performer's perspective to a manager's perspective, were there ever times you're working with, these bohemians or, free-spirited artists proved to be too chaotic or difficult, or was that exactly what you needed to feed off of for this type of platform?
I mean, there will always be big personalities and small personalities. There will always be the humble ones and there will always be the egotistical ones. But that is all part and parcel. And I think that is part of the job is learning how to manage those different situations and personalities and stuff like that. And I think, through the baptism of fire, I kind of learned, um, I learned that well enough. Um, and I guess from a performer's perspective, it also helped because I also knew how I would like to be dealt with as a performer, or what I would like to see from management. So, like I said, again, that was a next situation where I already had some insight that was valuable because I'd already seen it from the other side. So now being on the managerial side, I kind of wanted to treat with people that way, in the way that I would like to be treated with. So I think that definitely helped the managerial aspect in terms of having to manage the different um, other performers.
Bouncing off of that question, now in the actual running of the event, talk to us about the team that helps Bohemia Room to operate from start to finish on the night itself, or even in preparation. Talk to us about the people who are behind the scenes and the kind of things that are involved in actually preparing for the event and putting it on.
So, like I said before, I can never take all the credit because it's definitely not just me. It's definitely a team that is behind all the hard work that people see, from setting up the tapestries, the layout, even to the operation of the event on the night itself. Like there's a lot of different people that are very strong part of the team, like the backbone, I would say, almost, because although I may be the one, with the idea or up on the stage hosting, I still, like I said before, cannot be at all these different places at the same time. I cannot wear all these hats at the same time. I only have one head. So even though I'm wearing all these different hats, I could only put on one at a time. So I think having a team that is that hardworking, that loyal as well, like loyalty is everything. And having a team that I could say month in, month out, I could depend on for sure. These 5 people, even if it's five, if it's two, if it's one, that one person that month in, month out will always be there. I think that is the important part in building any team. Like knowing that despite the good, despite the bad, they will show up when they need to show up. And also that you build your team based on the strengths that people have. You know, if someone is better at customer service or just relating with people in general, they want to put them as a front person or face. If someone is better at logistics and planning, they want to have them in the background doing organizational things. If someone is a creative, you want to make sure and involve them in the creative decisions and the creative direction that you want to take the idea. So it's really about, as they say, knowing your Pokemon and knowing who to place where, and also knowing who really for you and who really want to see your visions come to life. Not just because, they want to put it up on Instagram and they want to say there's your friend and thing, but really and truly because they want to see you succeed. And likewise, you all want to see each other succeed. So you have to make sure that that genuine relationship is there between you and your team.
Is it that your team is predominantly your friends, as in people who you would have known from beforehand, or did you kind of expand into including people who you met through Bohemia Room along the way as well?
So I would say it really started as family. Like even the people that aren't necessarily family that were involved from the start, I would say is family. Like those people were the closest people to me, like from the start. And I would say building, as we started to grow, we definitely started to involve other creatives that I think um, added in different facets. So they would really come in to add insights that we would not have had before. But I still think the core team is still the core team. And I know that at the end of the day, family will always be family. So that's the people I know I could always count on. But you will always need to add more people as you grow. Like I said, that's where you need to really be mindful and be aware of the people that you're bringing into your team. Because, a wrong addition to the team could cause the collapse of a team. So you really want to be mindful of those things as well.
Now getting into the nitty gritty kind um, of the coordination of the event itself. And especially, I think in creative industries, a really important aspect to understand is the difference between, I guess, what you would call human or social capital and financial capital. So, not every job is a paid job. And you did talk about, calling in favors and stuff like that. So in terms of, and sometimes it's, agreements that you have to come to. I'm not going to pay you $200 an hour, but I'm going to, so how, on your team, what are the types of agreements that you have with the people who help coordinate the event? As in, like, who gets paid, who doesn't get paid, and what's the compensation like?
I think so. The most important part you have to understand again about your team is what is important to them, what works for them, because not everybody want money. Some people don't have money. You know what I mean? Not everybody want that. So it's about uh, what do you value and what value can I bring to you. Now, that was a very important um, philosophy at the start because I didn't have a lot of money to be thrown around. So it was really about being able to trade value. And I still think that that is a very important philosophy in life in general because you don't even realize this on a daily basis, but this is oftentimes what is happening in your life. Like you're trading value, you're exchanging value, you're bartering value. So this was just really me making that a thing and really offering people. So all right, or getting to know them and understanding. Okay, you may not you may not need $500, but you might need right now. What you need is a properly produced video of yourself doing this for XYZ, and that was really what you want right now to help further what you're doing. And right now you're looking and you can't get anybody to do it fair, but I know somebody that can do it fair, right? So I'll say, okay, you perform, and I'll get this person to put together a video fair. Boom, 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 and I get what I want, you get what you want. Now, I'm not saying it's just back scratching, but you really have to understand what drives your team, what drives every different individual, and be able to genuinely provide them with equal value. Like it has to be equal value. It can't be that they break in their back for you and you get them at the mint and go along your way. Nah, it has to be equal value, whether it's quantifiable or really quality. So I think I don't have to answer any question, but
Oh
you
yeah,
really have to understand each person individually on a really deep level and be able and willing to provide equal value, whether it be monetary or otherwise.
equal is the operative word there, and I think especially you coming from a creative background, you would know about people wanting to give you a dinament for a production, So I think maybe that also builds on that experience from the performer's perspective or the perspective of somebody who's, providing a service or whatever the case might be, that the important thing is compensating them for their time and their efforts with something that is of equal value.
Correct, and I'll give you a very quick example right now. There was one performer that never asked for any payment. I won't call his name, but he never asked for any payment or anything like that at all. He did a full featured performance, never asked for any payment. And to this day, we still have an understanding, and it's not even like a spoken thing, but anything that he needs with regards to his own endeavors, I do, and I do it for free. And it's not a matter of, I don't know how much money I could make if I charge to do that, or he doesn't know how much money he could have made. It's just a matter of equal support,
Mhm.
right? So he, like I said, he did it. He never talked about money, not once. I never talked about money, not once. And not because I didn't want to compensate him or didn't want to pay him or anything like that. But again, I guess it's just because we both knew
Mhm.
that this is the level that we were both at.
Yeah.
That, you know, you don't need to pay me for this, and you don't need to pay me for this. This is just how we provide that equal value for each other.
All right. Which segues into my next question as well. So you have had some, I guess, big names as your guest performers, or I guess you could say your headline performers. These are just some examples that I got from Makwini Instagram yesterday. Talk to us a little bit about how that works. Just generally, yeah, with the guest artists and the arrangements that you have with them, and how they push the event and whatever you want to say about it.
I'll start by saying each procurement process is absolutely different. Each procurement process is fundamentally different. Like something one could happen over a WhatsApp conversation, a next one could happen in a month. A line a month ago. Our next one could be me actively trying to make this happen and running down this person, cold calls, emails. And our next thing could just be a meeting in Starbucks, sitting down and negotiating, okay, what would it really take for you to do this? And how can we really make the two brands synergize? And like I said, each time, I don't think there's ever been, we don't have a set process for it. Like it's literally knowing, like, so what we do have is a pool. Like one good thing about doing your market research as well is that you will help yourself develop contacts. It'll work for networking, all of those different things. So we actually have a pool or a database of most of the artists, comedians, all the different disciplines, dancers. We have a database, especially because we were able to start with that lead generator and developing these different profiles, these different email addresses from the event. All of these people are creatives.
Mm.
So we through that we were able to develop a database, and now we know each month we could actually set. If I wanted to set 2021 calendar, I could set a calendar for 2021 based on the dates that I know we usually go on, and fill those months with people from the database based on who I think would be good for a certain month. And from there, it's just a matter of trying to see if we can acquire certain people for certain months. And if we can't, we have to try and find a different person. But like I said, Trinidad is not short of talent. So if it didn't work out for this person this month and they say, well, okay, I might be free in October, well, cool, I'll link in October. Well, now I have to find somebody else for September. You know what I mean? But we actually have a list of people to choose from. So it's not that we have to just scamper around Trinidad, scouting for talent. But we do have a list of people that we are always adding to, because more and more people are always reaching out to be a part of it. So it's really about, I think the main thing in each process is your relationship with the person, and being able to build a relationship with that person. Again, understanding what it is they actually need or want from the situation, and how you all can provide each other equal value. In most cases, especially with some of these big names, they're going to just tell you money, and that's fine. In some cases, you'll be able to work out, like with Nyla, we were able to work out a really nice situation, and I think it worked really well. Like the outcome was really good. I mean, that was back in January of last year. Now Nyla is on a whole different level too.
Mhm.
So you never know. But like I say, being able to build relationships with people is the most important part.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting with the database thing because you never know who on that database just started off as somebody with a guitar and a mic in Bohemia Room, and then 3 years down the line, they, you know, winning awards, they performing here and there. So, building that network, not just using your performers to be on stage, but also as a network you're building. I like that.
I just want to tell a real crazy story right now. Like I will never forget the first time I heard of Gill.t, and I was printing in the shop for Gill.t, and a guy was playing this song, and he like every time I would go to print, he would be telling me about this man and saying, "Hey, this man gonna be big. This man gonna be big." And one day I went to the store, and he was playing the song, and I was like, "The song is actually real good." And so he was like, "Well, hey, I could link the two of y'all, and I could get him to perform at Bohemia Room." So I was like, "Cool." So I link him, and he was like cool saying whatever, whatever. On the night of the performance, I'll never forget. Like first time I meet him on thing, the man, like first of all, I didn't expect him to look like that, and then two, I didn't expect him to be as nervous as he was, because to me the song was so good. Like to me, this person doing this years.
Mhm.
So he was so nervous, and I am about to like stall to put him on because he was like, "Not yet, not yet, not yet." And then when he went on, like the first few lines he started saying, you could see the nerves though, but eventually the man just come into it, and the performance, like the man like he steal the whole show that night because everybody already know the song too.
Mhm.
So so just to tie all this back to that was the first time apparently that he had performed live, like in a setting like that. And now Kutain is one of the biggest names in local music.
Mhm.
And to me, that is heights.
It is. Even I
But
am a
man
big
is,
fan of Putin.
no, he's extremely talented. He actually has a song that dropped, I think, today with Choppy called Drip. You should check it
Oh.
out. But
Mhm.
like that, like just remembering that is insane to me because I, same thing as saying, like to me, I thought he had it already.
Mm.
And to see him that nervous and then to see him now,
Yeah.
chalk and cheese.
That's nice to see. You're
Yeah,
literally providing a platform for people to start off and grow, and you don't know what they'll become, coming out of that. It's
it's
amazing,
crazy. It's
actually.
crazy.
Um, and then also talking about agreements and everything not necessarily being money and the different types of capital and stuff like that. When I asked you about the difference between the first Bohemia Room and the most recent ones, you said that one of the changes would have been the sponsors. We have 9 minutes, and then we'll just come back. We don't have that much more to ask you, so it will probably just be one session after.
Sure.
But in terms of the sponsors, tell us. Well, first of all, how did and I know you have different sponsors probably for different months. But I guess you'll tell us more about that. But how did you go about actually contacting the different sponsors?
So again, that is our next blessing in networking, like being able to actually have prior relationships with some of these brand managers and some of these people in these positions to actually present you with these opportunities. But the main thing is one having the ambition, like actually knowing to yourself, okay, I want to target some kind of sponsor for sponsorship because that is one of the best ways to acquire quick capital to do whatever your idea is to execute. So I think targeting sponsors is a very important part of your business development, but you want to make sure that you partner with sponsors that make sense. So two of the sponsors I'll talk about very quickly would be Digital and Y2. Y2 made sense for me because for our demographic, it was the leading rum that was drinking. And we actually had, before we even went to White Oak, we had stats about that because the first three um, shows that we did with no sponsorship. We paid for our White Oak and sold it, and it sold out every time. So we were able to go to White Oak and say, well, these are the stats we have. Well, are drinking this here, would you consider that? And at the time, I was already building my own independent relationship with White Oak. So it helped, right? So that was one situation. The next situation is Digicel. And Digicel, we were fortunate to, like I say, have a relationship with one of these people beforehand. And at that time, we had already perfected how to approach sponsors in terms of having a properly done proposal and all of these different things, being able to have the right stats to show, being able to have an understanding of what their ROI is and how to provide them with proof of that ROI, and just to be able to speak all the marketing lingo and jargon to relate to these sponsors, because at the end of the day, all they care about is the bottom line. All they care about is how much money you're gonna make them. So really and truly, they're giving you this money on a promise that you are going to somehow make their brand bigger or bring some sort of return on investment. And so on getting an understanding of that as well, aside from the relationship building part and the networking part, is very vital because they actually need to know what alcohol company is looking for as opposed to a telecommunications company, right? So again, the research just also made sense because they are a telecommunications company. Their sole thing is based on digital, whether you're on a phone, you're on an app, you're on a website. Their sole thing is digital, which is where, like I said, we had plans of going. So that partnership again just made sense naturally. And of course, we have a whole host of other sponsors that were very important to us. And again, it's just about making sense. How can they help us bring value to the consumer? And how can we help bring consumers to their brand?
Nice. And well, tying into what I was saying about everything not necessarily being money, and we have some big sponsors going now really taking it into this. um, is it that, or I'm assuming it won't be this, but is it that all of your sponsorship agreements are that they give you money, or what kind of agreements do you have with them? I mean, as much as we could say, you don't have to tell us all your contracts and your business, but
That's fine.
I'm kind of curious to know about the ones who not necessarily saying, all right, here's $1,000.
That's a very good question. So, not all sponsorship agreements come with money. In fact, especially now in these COVIDian times, you're probably not going to get a lot of sponsorship offers that come in attached with money.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them, sometimes they will offer you a product, they will offer you hampers, different things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, this is where understanding how to pair with sponsors makes sense, and pair with sponsors that are brands that could really help your brand. Now, you don't want to go, like, for me personally, it didn't make sense for me to seek a sponsor like, who can I think of? Um, let's just say Massy, right? Because not Massy distribution, by the way, Massy, like,
Oh,
yeah, like, let's say Massy Insurance,
okay.
right? It doesn't make sense for me to really necessarily pay Massy Insurance because the demographic that I am bringing to them may not really appeal to their their audience. And then what they have to offer me aside from money may not necessarily be something that could align with my brand or align with our offering. So you really have to be mindful of you know who you're targeting in terms of sponsors, in terms of what they can give to help benefit you and your brand, your experience, and your consumers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's the first thing. So even if you're getting product, but that product is going to help add to the experience. So we actually did for Christmas, we did a Christmas box, to give back to the consumers that consisted of mostly stuff from all of our sponsors. And that was just really a token of appreciation for coming to all of our events for the entire year. So this is our last event for the year. Take something back, and that provided value for the consumer. And it also provided awareness for the brands because you open your box to see, you're excited to see what is in the box. And then there's a thing from Coca-Cola, is this from Carib, is this from White Oak, is this from Massey? And that is now bringing awareness back to them. And of course, we'll have different giveaways and different competitions tied into events where you have to now tag these brands and stuff like that. So again, you're generating more user generated content for these brands to use, right? So again, you need to understand what the brands themselves are interested in and how they can provide value to your experience, and of course, how you could provide value to them. Because without that last part, they're not going to be interested.
And as you said, especially in these times where they don't have, their marketing department don't have money to waste to just.
Budget's thin.
Mhm.
Festivals that we do locally here in Trinidad. And to me, that is a level I would like to reach to eventually, first, before I even think international. I want to build it to a big enough brand here so that when the time comes to go international, that step is a lot more fluent or fluid. So, um, in terms of the yes, that is where the digital content comes into play. And that's why I think digital is so important, because once you go digital, it's now international. It's available for everyone and anyone, anywhere. So anybody that has digital content out on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, you are already international, because somebody in Australia could watch it, somebody in the States could watch it, anybody could watch it anywhere. Right? So in the plans that we have to go digital, I guess the answer is yes, because the whole plan behind going digital is yes, we would like to have digital representations of our content and and we want to do that here, but we eventually want it to become or be widespread enough on a scale that it is international, that you're getting international views for your content. And people are aware of what we are doing here internationally. That is, of course, a goal for I think anybody with any business. You always want to conquer here and then, of course, conquer internationally. So, yes, ultimately, I suppose, is the answer to your question.
Deshauna, does that answer your question? You want to follow up on that, or you're good there?
Good day.
Cool. All right. Whenever you have to leave, just let us know, and see you next week.
Well, I need to leave now.
Okay. Bye. Thank you.
Well, bye bye.
Take care. Thanks for your questions.
um, Anybody have anything that they want to ask about Bohemia Room specifically before we move on? Because I just want to wrap up on a slightly different topic. So if anybody wants to ask anything about Bohemia Room in particular, then feel free to take off your mic or put it in the chat. Speak now or hold your peace until further notice. Everybody good so far? If you're typing, if it comes up, then we'll ask. But I'm gonna talk for a second now about it's Gill.t, right? Now I a little slow. So at first I thought it was guilt because I think the first place I saw it was the trips. So I was like, oh, guilt trips, that is just brilliant. But then I was like, wait, no, it's Gill.t. And then Yelena and Alyssa, I had a little bit of an argument about this. But tell us what the vision was between the writing aspect of it and then the teach. Just tell us, briefly, generally about that.
So, some background origin stories about Gill.t. When I was younger, like talking primary school and then, my mother would always like label my stuff. So my books, my lunch kit, all these different things. She would put Gill.t, standing for Tevyn Gill, which is my name. But she would always, I don't know why, but she would always put Gill.t. And so for me, that was just a thing in my head from small. Um, Fast forward to maybe I think 2016 was when I was really getting into the writing heavy, because I had started working with Scorch magazine in 2015, and that was where the writing really started happening for real. But in that period between 2015 to 2016, I was when I really started to really get into it and started to experiment with the poetry and all this stuff. And I was having a conversation with somebody about, you know, what I would call myself if, I was to ever become a poet or whatever the scenario would have been, and that we were discussing then. And they were like, what would you call yourself? All poets have this kind of moniker or, alias that they use. And so I couldn't think of any at the time, like anything creative. But again, like I said, Gill.t was also something that was in the back of my head. So I just kind of said that jokingly. And, we just ran with it with the joke, whatever, whatever. And then for my birthday that year, that same person created a WordPress site for me and named it Gill.t. Now it was empty. The site didn't have any content on it. They just created like the shell and named it Gill.t and sent it to me for my birthday. And I'll never forget, for a year, that site sat there empty, because to me it was just a ridiculous idea. And then in 2017, again for my birthday, I just kind of revisited it. And by that time, I now had a lot of content on my phone in terms of like written stuff. So I decided to populate the site, and so I actually started um, filling up one section with poetry because I had a lot of stuff with that in that area. And then I started looking for my old sites from my old articles from the Scorch website and all those things, and pulling those and putting that into an article segment. And then there was a segment for just, quick thoughts that I had that I would jot down in my notes on my phone. And before I knew it, it had a full website full of content. But it was still private, like it was locked, it was not published. So I had this fully, um, you know, laid out website with content and color schemed and everything. And it was just there. And I remember I had this, uh, I guess, epiphany in 1 October in 2017, one day in October. And I just posted some of the stuff from my phone on Instagram. I still don't know why. I just posted a few stuff. And people started like going crazy, replying to it and stuff like that on, on stories and whatever. And it really changed my perspective on sharing those things, because especially for I guess the person I thought I was in my head then, it just didn't fit. It didn't make sense, and so I was really skeptical about sharing those kind of things. And when that happened, I was just kind of like, okay, maybe it wouldn't be that bad. And then I'll never forget October 17th, which is actually tomorrow, is the anniversary. That was the first day I published the site. And on the first day, it got 501 views. And I remember that was insane because for a while, that was like the most views the site had ever gotten, ever. And yeah, that was the start of the Gill.t. Yeah, and so since then, it's kind of developed into more of a, well, I'm trying to develop it more into a lifestyle brand. As merch and stuff has become pretty much one of the main sources or avenues of revenue through the brand. And in the last few years, to be honest, the focus has been kind of more on Bohemia Room than the Gill.t. So there are some things that I'm trying to correct where that is concerned now, in terms of the actual business model, and not to mention content, because I mean there can be no business model without content. Those are some things I'm trying to address with that brand now, to do that transition from just a site that started off for self-expression to now a lifestyle brand that really showcases everything that I am and everything that I want to create and share with you.
My follow-up question was going to be something like, well, as you were talking, I was like, okay, I wonder what was, the moment that gave you, I guess, the courage to put it out there. And I think that's really interesting that it's not always calculated. Sometimes it's just on a whim, and whatever spirit flows, things happen, and they happen for the best. It can't always, put everything on a timeline, as you said earlier, as well.
And just to build on what you're saying there, it's funny that both these things happen like that. Like,
Yeah.
it was really a planned thing. It was just literally one night I could not sleep and was going through whatever mentally and decided this is what I'm gonna do, and I did it. And I'll never forget this. As soon as I think I posted about 6 pictures to my story, and as soon as I posted those 6 pieces, I went straight to sleep. Like like I couldn't sleep the entire night, and as soon as I do that, I don't know if it's shame, what, this madness. I just went straight to sleep. And when I woke up and saw my phone, I remember I was scared to open my phone. Scared. But it ended up working out the complete
Mhm.
next way. So you never really know. You never really know.
Yeah. Now tell us a little bit about going from the writing aspect of it. Laquisha also has a question that I want to stick in here. Laquisha, if you don't know what question I'm talking about yet, think about it. So tell us about going from the writing to the t-shirts then.
Very, very easy. Um, I again did not really have much plans of doing merch that soon. There's actually another friend, very close friend, decided to create a jersey for me. So I again unknowingly had something created for me, and it just said Gill.t. It was literally just a T-shirt with the logo, and that was before the logo had this whole circle and all of that. It was literally just a T-shirt with the words "The Gill.t." And I remember the first time I wore that T-shirt out, one person asked like where they could get one. And I was like, okay. And then the second time I wore it out, 3 people asked. Then the third time, 5 people. So especially at that time, I didn't really have anything else going on in terms of revenue or income. I was like, okay, this is something I need to jump on because this is now what 9 opportunities I've had to sell the same T-shirt. And to me, it was like the T-shirt is not even saying anything. It was literally just to market the site. It was literally a T-shirt with the words and then the site or something on the back. And it was literally just to promote the fact that I had launched the site. And now people wanted to buy the jersey because they had gone to the site, they had seen what the site was about, and they wanted to support. So seeing that, like I immediately started like just printing T-shirts with the Gill.t on it, and also started experimenting with some of the ideas that I had seen come up in some of the content. So one of the biggest ones I could think about is the progress over perfection. And that was literally just an idea adapted from a piece I had written about that. And that ended up being one of the top sellers once we actually went to market with the merch, like the proper merch. And now the misunderstood, which is kind of like a development on that progress over perception, progress over perfection, sorry, is now the next bestseller, and it's really again something that comes from another piece, but really is something that kind of also makes you think, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And that was kind of the basis behind the merch, like how to bring the emotion from some of these pieces, whether it just be that we put the words on them, or whether we actually adapt an idea that captures the essence of the pieces. Like how do we now bring that from the site to merch? So that is where we've been, working on designs and coming up with new ideas. And but everything always comes from an existing piece. It isn't just something that I draw from anywhere. It comes from. So even the Be Happy that you see in there, if you go to the website, there's a full um, short story on that design and where that origin comes from. So it's really more than just wearing a design. You're really wearing a piece. You're really wearing a story, right? Um, so that is, I guess, where the development from just going from the logo on a T-shirt to some of the designs that you're seeing here now. That's where it comes from.
Okay, that's brilliant. Wow, I wasn't expecting something. So, I thought it would just be, well, yeah, I decided to sell t-shirts because,
Nah.
one of
Like I said, again, something that wasn't calculated at all. Like
yeah.
if I didn't wear that T-shirt to that night, who knows?
Mm-hmm,
Or if that person never even created that T-shirt, who knows?
mm-hmm.
But now that snowballed into something completely, different. So what I would like to do from here is actually now using those pieces and using those stories, try to get people to understand what the philosophy is behind the brand and what the core elements of what the purpose of it is.
Mm.
And really and truly it's just about being yourself, self-expression, like doing the things that people didn't think or didn't peg you for, but this is really part of you still. And
Right.
it's really about actually showcasing those sides of yourself and just kind of being okay with it and living with it, like when being comfortable in your own skin.
Love that. Love it. LaQuisha, have you figured out which question I was talking about yet?
I
Um,
have an idea, miss. Because
fantastic.
I mean he just spoke about his published assets
Mm-hmm,
when he made a profit online.
mm-hmm.
So I think he kind of answered the question, but I will try to see if I could
Okay. All right.
yeah. So my question to you is, Mr. Gill.t, what policy did you analyze to reduce infringement risks and build your intellectual property assets?
Wow, that's
Yeah, now she
a
gave me this question
question.
last night, and I was like, LaQuisha, what do
I
you
kind of try to tweak it.
Yeah,
That's
break it down for us a little bit.
excellent.
I'm speaking about your artistic work or your designs, the creations you built in your mind. That's what I'm speaking about. Do you want me to ask you the question again?
No, I think I understand you basically asking what do I put in place to protect those things, right?
Yeah,
Right.
the
So
rights to your privacy.
correct. So I mean, locally, that is a very tedious and almost discouraging process. Um, but I will always say from the jump, the one thing I want to always do is have a paper trail for the things that you're taking seriously business wise. So whether it go from something as simple as registering your businesses, all these things, you need to have the proper paperwork in place so that when it actually comes time to things like copyright and trademarking and things, you actually have the right things that could get you there. Because without a registered business, you can't apply for copyright, you can't apply for trademark. You need to, well, for certain things, but you need to have, like I say, you need to have this paper trail or this document, this set of documents to be able to pursue certain things, especially things that tie into like intellectual property trademark. Um, but like I say, in Trinidad, that process is very difficult and internationally more so because there's a lot of homework that even goes into the appeal, but and a lot of time that it takes to wait to find out the results from that appeal and all these things. So, but there are ways to go about it. I would say definitely things like talking to a lawyer about IP, IP copyright, IP trademarking, those kind of stuff. They will be able to give you the best legal advice, which I think is the most important. Being able to acquire the right legal advice of how to go about protecting your stuff is the first thing. So for all of you that may have lawyer friends, lawyer uncles, lawyer aunties, lawyer daddies, mommies, please utilize that. Ask them what is the best way to legally go about protecting my intellectual property and rights. Because it will differ for different territories, it will differ for different international bodies. So you need to have understanding on how to do it here first, because I think here is the most important, it's the most direct place that you will have anybody trying to teach their ideas, if that's where you're coming from. And then once you have the stuff organized here, you seek to do it internationally. But I would say tap into your people that in the law industry and find out, do your market research, right? And find out what is the proper process for you and what you are trying to protect.
Laquisha, does that was very insightful. Is that answer, or do you have anything to follow up from that?
Yes, it does answer my question. Um, is it okay if I ask him a question based on his intergalactic webosphere called the Gill.t.wordpress.com?
Sure.
Oh.
Okay, so I kind of did a little research and I realized like you have over 6,000 readers who like read your post, which is like Body Holiday, which is the 3 peaks challenge, and it also have one where you said something called one small step for me and one giant step for the Gill.t. So I know that you express a lot of political views and some of your motivations or insecurities in your own world that can maybe make an impact in someone's life, right? So I need to like find out like what creative business models you put in place to expand this network. That's like something that inspires you to pursue like this poetry.
So basically, what creative business models I have in place for the creation of new content?
Yeah, based on your organization.
Um, well, I'm not sure there's a particular business model to the creation, like, because I think the creation is really something that happens naturally. Well, at least my process is something that happens a bit more naturally. So it's really, for me, it's really a matter of curating existing content. So, like I said before, like this site, the site that you are seeing now, only came together or was only published like months after it was actually populated. So I'm not saying everything that you're seeing there was populated then, but I'm saying the first site. It's kind of like Instagram, where they say you don't want to bring people to a site or to a page that doesn't have at least 9 tiles, because you obviously want to keep people on your page. You want them to come and see something about your brand. It's the same thing for that. Like I would have content prepared beforehand, and I would then curate what goes where and how to tell that story. So even something as creating the headline graphics that accompany each thing, like you want to make sure and have something that adds to what you're trying to convey. So for me, my process is more, I would write whenever I write, and then I would go through that content later on and see how I can adapt certain parts of certain things or even whole pieces and adapt it to the site or adapt it specifically to social or adapt it to, a specific type of social. Like Facebook is different to Instagram is different to Twitter. So it's really about how you curate existing content based on, your particular process. And mine is that I write whenever I write, and then I address those things after, and then see how I can use any particular piece in a particular fashion. Just that add to that also, things like rollout matter in that case, because just like with any social campaign, you want to have a particular rollout. So you want to have a content calendar for the month where all right, I personally did it where I released poems on a Tuesday, I released short like thoughts on a Thursday, and I would release the short stories on a Sunday. That was my rollout that I had um, for the website. So people knew that every Tuesday you get a new poem, every Thursday you get a new thought, every Sunday you get a new story. And that also, like that consistency also help people to know, all right, today's Tuesday, I need to go and check or whatever the case is. And then of course you promote all of those things using your socials to generate people going to the website. So having a properly thought out calendar and schedule for your posting also helps to curate that community and that vibe that you're going for with your content.
Thank you. LaQuisha, you have anything that you want to follow on that with?
No mess.
Okay.
Did I answer the question by the way? I don't know if I.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, all right.
I just have two more questions for you. If anybody has anything else that they want to ask, put it in the chat and we could try to wrap up in the next 10 minutes. So, and also kind of in a way related to what you just said. Now, your undergrad was in psychology. Um, Obviously, you're not a psychologist, but how do you feel as though um, your studies informed your creative entrepreneurship or vice versa, or do you feel as though it didn't, or just kind of, how your studies mapped or did not map on to what you eventually, are doing now? Because I kind of ask this really with these students in mind because they're in upper sixth, so they're going into university or going into jobs this time next year. Um, so yeah, this is really for them in understanding how adulthood works, I guess.
So I wouldn't say I'm not a psychologist. I think everybody are psychologists because psychology is such an innate thing, right? And everyone has some sort of understanding of psychology, whether they realize it or not. Do I think that psychology helps, or that I use psychology in my current field of, you know, entrepreneurship and such? Yes, for sure. Because I think, especially given my insights and having done a whole degree on psychology, you understand certain things a lot differently or a lot better because at the end of the day, psychology really has to do with how the mind works and how people think and how certain things affect that. So something like environment, something like communication, something like all these different things that I could call that to people are everyday things. That is part of psychology. That affects your psychology. The color of your room affects your psychology. You know what I mean? So I guess having a in-depth understanding to some of these things really does help because you can try to use them to your benefit. Having an understanding of psychology, it also helps you to relate to people a lot better because you're quicker to try to assess their psychology and move to suit. And so that helps with the management of personalities, that helps with, you know, reading a room and knowing how to assess people quickly. Um, so yes, I do think I use psychology in my endeavors. I do think that it is a fundamental area of study for any business, any further studies. Like I feel like they should be teaching that in secondary school and then. Um, but for anyone else looking to go and do their studies now, I would say, like for me, I did not pick psychology because I wanted to be a psychologist. I picked psychology because it was something I was generally interested in, and I was never about school, but I would never agree to do a degree in something that I wasn't interested in. Like I could not make it through a degree doing something I wasn't interested in. So for me, I didn't really want to go to university, but I knew that I had to get a degree. So I decided to study something that I was genuinely interested in, and I could sit down and read a book on whether I was in class or not, and that helped me for sure, for sure, for sure, for sure. I would definitely say if you have to pick a degree, if you feeling iffy about going to university and doing a degree, pick something that you're genuinely interested in. It don't matter if you could come back to Trinidad and use it, because you will always find a way to use it. And even if you don't find a way to use your specific degree, you have a degree. So you still have a foot in certain doors. So I would definitely say like I have gotten jobs with my psychology degree that have nothing to do with psychology. But it helps that I have a degree. And it also helps that I have an understanding of what I studied because I was interested in it and I could use it now. And you want to use it in real life because, it's something that to you matters. So definitely I would say for everybody that looking to head off to university now, make sure that you pick something that you could really do day in, day out in terms of having to sit down in a class, like having to go to class on them rainy days where you feel to stay in your bed. Like really and truly picking something that you're actually interested in helps.
100%. 100% agree. Um, I just in time. I only have one more question, but if anybody has anything else that they want to ask, please put it in the chat, and then we could stick it in. I'm trying to pick between. We have 6 minutes and 11 seconds, and then of course, well, anyway, before we finish, before I ask my last question, just in case we get cut off, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this, for being so eager, because the insights that you have given us have just been, I don't think you realize how much we appreciate it and how much we're going to be able to use this in the weeks and the months coming forward before they go off into the exams. So thank you so much. I now owe you a favor. But my final question for you, which one am I going to ask? What is the Okay, yes, I'll ask this one. What is the greatest lesson that you have learned um, through your process of being a creative or a cultural entrepreneur? If you were to tell these girls one thing that you think they ought to know or ought to incorporate in their lives, what would you tell them?
Just do it. Just do it. Like and I'm not like no plug to Nike because I'm not Nike man. But literally, it have no such thing as the right time. It have no such thing as perfect. Them things don't exist. Just do it. Even if the idea is incomplete, just start. Do it. Once you start, things will start to fall into place. Like it sounds crazy and it sounds whimsical, but again, I think the most fundamental part is it has to be something that you're passionate about, or else what I'm saying will not ring true. There are people that will say, "But I start and it didn't work out, boy," but because they didn't follow through, you weren't actually passionate about it. When I started doing the t-shirts, I was traveling in the Hudson and walking distances to print 2 jerseys, and when you think about the ROI on that, the money that you get from that is not a lot, but that's what it took, and that's what I did because I had to and I wanted to and I had to work. So, like I said, that passion will really get you over the finish line when it get hard because you know to yourself this is something you really want to make happen. So I would say just do it. Make sure something you're passionate about, and be open to feedback. Like be open to definitely always bounce the ideas off of people, but do not depend on the feedback. Do not just because they tell you, hey boy, I don't think it will work with 5 different disciplines, or I don't think that projection things will look good. At the end of the day, still make your own decisions, but definitely understand what the feedback is from different people, especially people in your industry. Like understand what the general feeling is, and if your feeling still override that, do it. Then do it. At the end of the day, it's yours. So just do that. But still be open to hearing what other people have to say, because that will also help shape how you go forward, and people will have insights that you personally may not have or may not be thinking about. So, like I say, just start, make sure it's something you're passionate about, and be open to feedback. And always be willing to improve. Always be seeking to improve or streamline something, because it always have something to improve. It always has something to streamline. Always. So that's it, I guess.
Ooh, can't get better than that. You literally can't get better than that. And just in time as well. So as we wrap up again, I want to say thank you, thank you so much. And my five ladies and Yelena and Alyssa are now also going to take off their mics and tell Tevyn thank you as well for taking time out of his Friday afternoon to come and talk to us. So go ahead, y'all, give him a little snap, a little round of applause. A thank you, whatever you want to say.
Tevyn, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tevyn.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all
That's
for
right.
having me, and I hope that what I said was insightful, and I wish you all the best of luck in all of your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Sending you good vibes from South.
Thank you.
Blessings.
All right, I'm ending the call now, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe. Don't catch COVID. Wear a mask. Wash your hands.
Take care.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. Over and out.